Hi, I'm Jeremy Smith,
I'm Doug Gerlach.
And I'm Leah Eggeman.
and our group project was to make a road and trail map of the Willow Still property.
The objectives of this project was to create a comprehensive map of the roads and trails located on the Willis-Still property, including road type and condition, and also marking the points of obstructions and problem areas in the road, including things like major erosion or downed trees in the road, making it impassable to vehicles.
Our goals of usage of this map were number one, conducting and planning prescribed fires. Having an existing road system allows us to make clear boundaries for burn units and provides for easy fire breaks. It also allows us to access areas that need fire suppression quickly in the event of a wildfire or an escape prescribed fire. It also, having roads allows us to access for wildlife data collection, things like trail camera surveys where you have to carry corn a potentially long distance on foot can be mitigated by road access with a vehicle. You can improve the efficiency of timber surveys for mensuration classes or other where you can use vehicles to access areas for timber surveys. Potential timber harvest in the future. You need roads to get timber or to get people in to get timber out. So that's vital in the case that may happen. A map, also our map needs to show points of repair or maintenance. Repair specifically being erosion control, as Leah mentioned, and road clearing being down trees or areas where underbrush is encroached on the road and needs a lawnmower. We also need these roads marked in order to better monitor for trespassing and poaching, so you can see who's been in there or who is in there currently.
So some things that we needed for this project were a handheld GPS. We used the Garmin eTrex GPS. We also needed access to the ArcMaps GIS programming software. We also needed Google Earth for the aerial imagery while we were mapping the roads. And then we gathered our property boundary lines from QPublic.
So the map creation process began with stakeholder communication, figuring out what his objectives and goals were for this final map. Then we actually went out to the property and collected data using the GPS. Then we imported and digitized that data into ArcMap, and then we created the final map.
So this all started with stakeholder communication. We spoke with Dan about what he wanted for the map, what kind of features he wanted included, and that sort of thing. And then we submitted a project proposal.
So for the data collection process, we walked and drove the roads and trails on the property using the tracking function on the GPS. And we marked all the obstructions and road classifications with GPS points. And while we were out there walking these trails, we found some pretty neat things. Up here in the left, we had this turtle we found in one of the low areas. We also found a skeleton with some nice antlers for the deer. And that was pretty neat as well. And right here, this was the other side of a major washout and a culvert on the southeastern portion of the property. And in the bottom left corner, we have a picture of one of the wet areas where there's a duck blind. It was aluminum and had shotgun shells on it. It's just an interesting find. We also found some signs of the turpentine industry out there with cat faces and things of the like.
Once we collected our data out there on the property with the GPS, we had to import that data into ArcMap to create a map for y'all. This data we put into shape files. We digitized the trails that we had made with the tracking function on the GPS, and we also were able to classify those with the waypoints marking the obstructions that were in the road. We also downloaded our property boundary from QPublic.
And then we created the final map. So we downloaded aerial imagery from USGS Earth Explorer and overlaid the map over top of it. Assigned colors and symbols to the map boundaries, roads, trails, points of interest, etc. There was a lot of gnashing of teeth and long nights spent deciding on what color needed to be where, but we got her did, and then formatted and arranged the map features into a suitable viewing method way, a pretty picture, and then we saved the final map as PNG.
Here's our final map. It's the boundaries in red The orange lines are roads that are accessible by vehicles. Most of these are on the northern end of the property. The solid yellow lines are the UTV trails. The majority of these on the property are inaccessible at the moment due to impassable objects like fallen trees, the washout culvert. In one section of the property, there's also a pond that splits the road on the northern and the southern end of the property. A lot of these, if these obstructions are cleared or fixed, would open up a lot of access to those UTV trails, which are also have the potential of being roads for larger vehicles like trucks and cars. The yellow dashed line is the footpaths found on the property. Um, some points of interest on there are the southeasternmost impassable mark is a culvert washout. There are 5 3-foot in diameter circular culverts. This washout seemed to happen back before the property was acquired by ABAC. Right now, it's cutting off access to that southern portion of trails and roads, and as well as the pond over in the southwestern portion of the property as well. And that pond, the road borders on both ends, but the access is kind of iffy at the moment. Another point of interest, these blue marks are the erosion parts of the roads that need to be fixed in order for vehicular traffic to be more accessible. Also, this an impassable point on the western side of the property, there is a drainage area. That's also where we found all the cat faces and signs of the turpentine industry.
One of the problems we predicted having was data organization. We thought about using a paper map and marking off which trails were UTV trails, which trails were only footpaths, etc. But we ended up using the GPS. We would just, as we were making the tracks on the GPS, we would mark which road classification we were mapping, and we also marked other obstacles in the road, such as a tree being down or where it was eroded, and that led us to be able to easily digitize it in GIS to make the final map.
So some other unexpected hazards that were encountered that eliminated the vehicle access to that southern portion of the property. Like I was saying, the culvert on the southeastern side, there were 5 culverts. They were all washed out pretty significantly. They have been a problem to vehicles trying to access that southern portion of the property. Also, that pond I was mentioning on the southwestern section, it's also pictured here in the slide right here. The road butts up to it on both ends, but we determined that it was too deep year-round for viable vehicle access.
So wet weather conditions were another thing we kind of fought during our data collection period. Daily thunderstorms made things a little western access in my Honda Pilot, and issues like that could be encountered. Another issue was with the thunderstorms was just keeping electronics dry and keeping from killing GPS units or cell phones. Third issue with the rain we've had this summer is we've had a higher than average level of rainfall, and the water table is elevated, which could contribute to areas being wet that most summers into the summer, end of the driest part of the year typically could have an elevated water table and places be wet that otherwise wouldn't.
So now we have a serviceable map created, but a significant portion of the roads need to have some work done in order to complete that full vehicle access to the southern portion of that property. Right now, there are mapped out 3.27 miles worth of roads accessible by trucks and cars. That 2.31 miles worth of UTV roads, a major portion of those are limited due to obstructions like the culverts, the ponds, the fallen down trees. Should these issues be fixed or corrected, the UTV trails will open up a lot more access to vehicles, not only on that southern portion, but that western side of the property as well. A major part of these roads, about a third of them, could probably also move up to the classification of roads for larger vehicles like your trucks and cars. And then in addition to the roads and UTV trails, We also have footpaths marked about 3/4 of a mile worth on the property.
So some specific areas of obstruction and poor conditions impede our ability to fully accomplish map usage goals. These specific areas of obstruction are the trees down on the western portion of the UTV trails, the pond that's on the southwestern side of the property, and the culverts that are washed out on the eastern side of the property. These three areas specifically, if addressed, would allow us to accomplish the conducting of prescribed fires, the burn unit assignment, and allow access for suppression of wildfires. It would also allow for potential timber harvest in the future. And maybe most importantly, it would allow for monitoring of trespassing and poaching, which is actively going on the property now. There are sites on the property where there are blinds and corn piles located that should probably be addressed.
So while obviously the roads need to be improved, there are some other improvements that could be made to the property. The only access point from the road that currently has a gate is the northwest corner. There are many other access points from the main roads that have no sign, no gate, nothing to keep people out. The signage could help prevent trespassing and potential hunting like Doug spoke about. The fencing could also be a good property improvement on the southerly and easterly portions of the property where those boundaries aren't marked by a main road to keep the neighbors from using their ATVs and setting up deer stands on ABAC property. The road improvement, simply improving the road would make it seem like people are out there regularly and hopefully combat some of the neighborly use on the property.
Some of the road issues currently could actually be a pretty significant liability to ABAC, particularly with trespassing being a problem on the property. Some certain unnamed individuals were traversing the property and managed to launch their vehicle into the a bottomless pit where the culverts used to be, where they washed out, and were only rescued through much sweat and tears. And there could have been major damages caused, and ABAC lucked out that everything escaped unscathed and everybody survived in one piece, despite having a very mad girlfriend.
So this concludes our presentation. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time.